The first time he touched me, it wasn't in some sweet, cinematic way. No, it was in the middle of a goddamn code blue, blood everywhere, monitors screaming, and his hand steadying mine before I completely broke apart. And I hated him for it, for being calm when I was drowning. New York City hospitals don't sleep. They grind you down, chew you up, and spit you out with bloodshot eyes and shaking hands. I was 24, an Omega doctor fresh out of residency, thrown into the chaos of endless night shifts. My body carried the exhaustion of 100 sleepless nights, and my heart carried something heavier. The fear of being seen as fragile, weak, breakable because of what I was born as. And then there was him, Ethan Blake, 25, alpha, a nurse with broad shoulders, sharp cheekbones, and the kind of presence that silenced a room. Everyone knew him, everyone relied on him, and everyone, including me, couldn't help but notice the way his eyes burned when he looked at you, like he was cutting through every wall you put up. The walls I had spent my entire life building. The night it began, it was pouring outside. Rain battered against the ER windows as the flood of patients came in, one after another. I had barely eaten. My hands were trembling from adrenaline, and I could feel the faint thrum of my suppressed heat cycle crawling under my skin. The suppressants worked, but not always perfectly. Not when I was this stressed. "Dr. Carter, you're shaking." His voice cut through the chaos. Calm. Low. Too close. I jerked my head up. Ethan was standing there, holding out a pair of gloves, eyes locked on mine like he knew something I didn't want anyone to know. "I'm fine," I snapped. Too quickly. Too defensive. His lips curved, not into a smile, but into something sharper. "You keep saying that, but you're about 2 minutes away from passing out." I wanted to hate him. I really did. But the truth? In that moment, with alarms blaring and patients screaming, the only thing keeping me from collapsing was the solid weight of his hand brushing against mine as he slipped the gloves on for me. Hours later, after the chaos had settled into the dull hum of monitors and soft murmurs of night staff, I found myself alone in the break room. Or at least I thought I was alone. I sat hunched on the couch, my head buried in my hands. The suppressant-induced headache was pounding against my skull, and the faint ache of something deeper, something primal, gnawed at my chest. I couldn't afford this. Couldn't afford for anyone to see me like this. And then the door creaked. "You should eat." Ethan again, of course, carrying a takeout box like it was some kind of peace offering. He set it down in front of me, his eyes lingering on my face for a moment too long. "I'm not hungry." My voice cracked, betraying me. "Liar." He crouched in front of me, tilting his head so he could meet my eyes. "You think no one notices, but I do. You're running yourself into the ground, Carter. One day you're going to break, and I—" He paused, biting back words, before his voice dropped. "I don't want to watch that happen." Something inside me twisted. An alpha's concern. Dangerous. Dangerous because it felt too good. Too warm. Too much like something I had been denying myself all these years. "I don't need your help," I whispered. His gaze didn't waver. "Maybe not. But you need someone to remind you you're not alone." That was the first crack in my armor. The weeks blurred together. More night shifts. More exhaustion. More stolen moments where his hand brushed mine, or his voice cut through my panic, grounding me. I told myself it was nothing. Just workplace reliance. Just a nurse and a doctor surviving the trenches together. But every time his eyes found mine across the room, something inside me betrayed me. Something that wanted. Something that ached. Something that terrified me. Because if I gave in, it wouldn't be casual. It wouldn't be meaningless. Not with him. And I couldn't afford to fall apart. Not when the world already saw me as weak. Not when being an Omega in medicine was already a battle I fought every single day. One night it all came crashing down. We lost a patient. A young boy, barely 16. I had done everything. Pushed every drug. Called every code. And still his heart flatlined. I stood frozen, staring at the monitor like I could will it to change. Like I could force his life back with sheer desperation. But I couldn't. I stumbled into the stairwell afterward. Chest heaving, hands shaking, bile rising in my throat. I pressed my forehead against the cold concrete wall and tried to breathe. And then I felt it. Strong hands gripping my shoulders, turning me, pulling me in. I crashed against Ethan's chest, fists clenching his scrub top as the sob broke out of me raw, guttural, unstoppable. I couldn't save him, I choked. His arms tightened around me, one hand cradling the back of my head like I might shatter. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. You're not God, Carter. You're human, and you did everything. Everything. I wanted to fight him, to push him away. But the truth was I needed him. Needed the way he held me, like I wasn't broken, like I wasn't weak, like I was just me. And when I finally looked up, tears blurring my vision, his face was so close. His lips parted, like he was about to say something, but instead he kissed me, soft, hesitant, like he was giving me every chance to pull away. But I didn't. For the first time, I didn't. That kiss ruined me, because after that, nothing felt the same. Every touch burned deeper. Every look lingered longer. And every night, when the hospital swallowed us whole, I couldn't stop thinking about the way his lips had felt against mine, gentle, careful. Everything I never knew I needed. But it also terrified me, because if I let myself fall, there would be no turning back. And maybe that was the point. The days after that kiss blurred into something new. Something terrifying, something intoxicating. Every stolen moment carried weight. Every brush of his hand against mine sent sparks through my veins. I wanted him. God. I wanted him so badly it scared me. But wanting was dangerous. And danger came knocking faster than I thought. Word travels fast in hospitals. Nurses whisper. Doctors gossip. And in a world where alpha and omega roles dictate everything, people notice things they're not supposed to. They noticed the way Ethan's eyes lingered on me. They noticed the way I unconsciously gravitated toward him in the middle of chaos. They noticed the subtle, almost imperceptible softening of his voice when he spoke my name. It wasn't long before I overheard it. Figures. The omega doctor and the alpha nurse. How cliché. He'll never last in surgery. Too fragile. Always needs someone to hold his hand. Maybe Ethan's just taking pity on him. Or worse, taking advantage. The words hit harder than I expected. I told myself I didn't care, that their voices were nothing compared to the screaming patients, the broken families, the endless emergencies I faced every day. But late at night, when I was alone, their whispers curled around me like smoke, suffocating. And so I pulled away. I avoided Ethan. I avoided his gaze, avoided the warmth of his presence, avoided the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, he could be the one thing in my life that wasn't chaos. Because if I let myself believe in that, what would happen when it was ripped away? Ethan noticed, of course. He always noticed. One night, after a brutal 12-hour shift, I found him waiting by the hospital entrance. Rain poured outside, his hair damp, his jacket clinging to his frame. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, watching me like I was some puzzle he couldn't solve. Finally, he spoke. "Why are you running from me?" I froze, my breath catching in my throat. "I'm not. Don't lie to me, Carter." His voice was sharp, sharper than I'd ever heard it. But underneath, it trembled with something raw. "One moment you let me in, and the next you shut me out. Do you even know what that does to me?" My chest tightened. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. Instead, I whispered, "It makes people talk, Ethan. About me. About you. And I can't afford that. I can't afford to be weak." His jaw clenched, his eyes blazing. "You think love makes you weak?" My lips trembled. "It does when you're an omega in a world that's waiting for you to fail." For a long moment, silence stretched between us, broken only by the rain. Then, slowly, he stepped closer, his voice dropping. "No, love doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger. It makes every battle worth fighting. And you, Carter." His hand lifted, brushing against my cheek with such gentleness it shattered me. "You're the strongest damn person I've ever met." And just like that, my walls crumbled. We didn't fall into each other easily. It wasn't some fairy tale romance where everything aligned perfectly. It was messy, painful, complicated. There were arguments, fears, moments where I almost walked away. There were nights when I woke up shaking, terrified of what the world would do if they saw me as more than just a doctor, if they saw me as Ethan's. But through it all, Ethan stayed. He stayed when I tried to push him away. He stayed when I snapped, when I cried, when I broke. He stayed not because he thought I was fragile, but because he saw me, all of me, and still wanted to hold on. And slowly I realized, maybe belonging to someone wasn't weakness. Maybe it was survival. The turning point came on a night like so many others, except this time, it was me who almost collapsed. The ER was overwhelmed. A car crash. Multiple victims. Too much blood. Too many broken bodies. And not enough hands. I worked until my vision blurred, until my knees nearly buckled. And then, suddenly, I was on the floor. I didn't even realize I'd collapsed until strong arms lifted me. The scent hit me first, Ethan, warm and grounding, wrapping around me like a shield. My body, weakened by exhaustion and the faint stirrings of an overdue heat cycle, instinctively leaned into him. Carter! His voice was raw with panic, echoing in my ears as everything else faded. Stay with me, please. I wanted to tell him I was fine, that I didn't need saving. But the truth was, in that moment I did. And for once I let him. When I woke, it wasn't in a hospital bed. It was in the quiet rooftop garden above the building, dawn just beginning to break across the city skyline. Ethan sat beside me, his jacket draped over my shoulders, his hand holding mine like he'd never let go. Why here? I croaked, my throat dry. Because you hate being looked at when you're vulnerable, he said softly. And I didn't want them to see you like that. Tears stung my eyes. Not because of the exhaustion, but because of the way he knew me, all my flaws, all my fears, and still stayed. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice breaking. I'm scared of what people will say. I'm scared of what it means to need someone. I'm scared of losing you before I even have the right to call you mine. Ethan turned, his eyes blazing with a fierceness that stole my breath. Then let me make it simple, he whispered, leaning closer until our foreheads touched. You're already mine, and I'm yours. After all the shit we've been through, after every night shift, every fight, every fear, Carter, we belong to each other. Nothing else matters. And when his lips found mine this time, it wasn't hesitant. It wasn't fragile. It was fire and promise and everything I had been too afraid to hope for. The world didn't change overnight. The whispers didn't stop. The judgments didn't disappear. But something inside me shifted. Because now, when I walked through the hospital halls, I didn't walk alone. Ethan's presence was always there, not overshadowing me, but walking beside me. And maybe that was the point. Not to erase the battles, but to fight them together. Months later, on another night shift, I found myself sitting in that same rooftop garden, the city lights glowing beneath us. Ethan leaned against me, his head resting on my shoulder, his hand tangled with mine. Remember when you told me love makes you weak? He murmured. I smiled faintly, pressing a kiss to his hair. Yeah, I was an idiot. He chuckled, low and warm. You still are. But you're my idiot. The words slipped out before I could stop them. After all, we belong to each other. And for the first time, I believed it. The night shifts never got easier. The world never stopped being cruel. But our love was the one thing that made it bearable. Because even in the darkest hours, I knew I'd always have him. And he'd always have me. Forever. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.